I wanted to be at Texas State. I chose to be at Texas State. I'm from Texas. That was important to me. I always knew if the right guy got this job, you better watch out.
You better watch out. This is Win Now or Get Bent, episode 148. If you don't already know, I'm Kev Chardello, coming to you on Friday, December 22nd, and they paid the man. GJ Kinney, restructured contract. $1 million man now. He's making $1 million a year. Contract extended just 1 year from 2027 to 2028. $200,000 a year more than the previous contract at $800K. Congrats to GJ Kinney. Well earned. Bobcats going to their first bowl game, as we all are well aware of, coming up on Tuesday. We're going to talk all about it. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about plans that we have before the game. Got some cool things cooking. We're also going to talk about signing day. 22 new Bobcats. How about that? 11 of them high schoolers. Not bad. A little different than the last strategy we saw. Lots to talk about. Lots to unpack. Before we get there, this episode is sponsored by TGC. TheGalindoCollective.com. TGC, that's TheGalindoCollective.com. G-A-L-I-N-D-O, Galindo Collective. A team of professional consultants dedicated to helping others realize their business potential through people, planning, and practice. Their services cover a wide range of areas such as business strategy, marketing, human resources, and financial planning. If you own property or a business and want to maximize its profitability, contact TGC at TheGalindoCollective.com. and follow their social media platforms on Twitter at TGC_LLC and on Instagram and Facebook at The Galindo Collective. Shout out to The Galindo Collective. Shout out to my guy, Rick Galindo, a true Texas State sicko, a Texas State grad. He is making sure that Win Now or Get Bent, myself and the wizard, Zachary Webb, are able to go to the bowl game in Dallas. Secured our hotel room and everything. Cannot thank him enough for his sponsorship throughout this season and even after the season and into the postseason. Shout out to Rick Galindo. Hit him up for any of your needs at TheGalindoCollective.com. We are also sponsored by a new sponsor. Introduced them on the last episode, Family First Cremation Services. Family First Cremation Services is a highly rated and affordable option for families during challenging times. Independently owned by Diane Lee, Family First assures families that we prioritize the well-being and comfort above everything else. Transparency is important to us, which is why we encourage you to visit our website at familyfirstcremations.com or more information on pricing and our services, or feel free to reach out to us directly at 281-541-0291. That's 281-541-0291. With over 20 years of experience in the industry, Diane has been privileged to serve the community in providing compassionate and personalized funeral services in Spring and the surrounding Houston areas. It's always a difficult time when you lose somebody. You want somebody on your side that is a caring person, and Diane is absolutely that. She's related to a sicko. She's an honorary sicko, so shout out to Diane. Got a big bowl game coming. Hope you are watching. Independently established Family First in 2017. So contact Diane for any of your needs at familyfirstcremation.com. And again, the phone number 281-541-0291. Thank you to Family First Cremation. We are also sponsored by our good friends at Chilsea. You know Chilsea. Oh, do I have the tumbler on me? Where is it? There it is right here. Win Now or Get Bent tumbler right here. You can get custom koozies, anything you're looking for there. If you order 6 of these, any logo you want on it, whether you have a family gathering, a work event, what have you, if you order 6 of these and punch in Bobcats at checkout, you can get them for $15 a piece. Not a bad deal. Check them out at chilsey.com. That's CHILLZEY. Thank you to Dennis Redding at Chilsey, another Tech State grad, a true sicko over there. My guy Dennis, he's got a cool business going. So check out chilsey.com, CHILLZEY.com. All right. If you want to sponsor us, hit me up, wnogbkef@gmail.com. All right, let's get to these Bobcats. I mentioned I'm ready to go. I'm ready to talk about it. Lots of good things to talk about. What an interesting December. It's all brand new for me dealing with a postseason. You know, I've dealt with December signing day since they introduced the early signing period. How long ago is that? Feels like 5 years ago now. I'm not exactly sure. Well, it used to just be one signing day, one big day in February, and they split it up into two of them, which is very necessary. I think that came around right around the time of the transfer portal. So I've been used to covering recruiting or coaching changes or whatever in December. This is a new animal for me. You get the bowl game at the beginning of the month. You figure out what that is. Then there's that push for signing day. They had a couple weeks, which again makes it even better that this bowl game is December 26th. All that extra time. I talked about it on the last pod and some of the presser pods that I've put out. Having that extra time really paid dividends. I mean, them able to pull out 22 signees out of this early period class with everything that's going on is pretty fantastic. I mean, you know, not to totally compare, but if you look at UTSA, they had a bowl game, the Frisco Bowl, a bowl that a lot of us had marked on our calendars as a potential spot for the Bobcats. They played in that game the day before signing day. Signing day rolls around and they end up with 12 quality players. There's even one of them, Damian Wimberly, that the Bobcats were trying to get. They even had him on a visit, and UTSA was able to secure that signee. But just 12 for them with so many players leaving. We see Frank Harris leaving, Rashad Wisdom leaving. Looks like Cephas is going to the NFL. They've got a lot of Trey Moore transferred out. So they've got a lot of needs to fill, and they weren't able to get as many as I'm sure they wanted on that day. They were only able to get 12 players. And preparing for a bowl game like that, that's what's going to happen. Not to, UTSA, they're pretty good at recruiting. There's no doubt, and they're going to do fine by February, maybe even go get a transfer quarterback. But it's nice to have that done early, where now you're looking at the February one where you're filling needs. Even when I'll put out the presser pod from the press conference on Wednesday, they did release it already. When I asked, well, what's this class looking like? Where are you going to end up at after 22? He was saying, going to get a few more. And I said, what do you think? Like 30? It's probably not that many. So not that many more. They're not going to have 10 more come February. They might if some guys enter the transfer portal, but doesn't seem like that's going to be the case with this recruiting class. But I meant to talk about the contract first, but I kind of got into recruiting. Obviously, you can see where my mind's at. I love recruiting, love talking about recruiting. But yeah, I've been used to having to cover recruiting in December. Not so much the bowl preparations and then a contract extension for GJ Kinney. I mean, there's just a lot going on. It's a very interesting December. Good stuff. Shout out to the San Antonio Express News. Check out my articles there. They've been giving me some good work. Nick Talbot and Greg Luca over there at the Express News. I'm glad they've decided to jump in on covering the Bobcats, because I was able to even write about the extension for GJ Kinney. Let's talk about that. Let's break that one down. I opened ever since they've been bowl eligible, I opened a few pods saying pay GJ Kinney, pay GJ Kinney. And every time I would put that episode out, I would get some reassurance from people surrounding the program saying, don't worry, that's always been in the plans. If the guy was successful, the restructure was going to come. This contract, the $800 a year, it was the same that Jake Spavital got before. And when they gave to GJ Kinney, it seemed low. I mean, you even had Morris, who's at UNT now. He balked at it when he saw it. He didn't necessarily turn it down, and Texas State didn't necessarily withdraw the offer. But there was some resistance. And in that little time of resistance, GJ Kinney came in and took the $800,000, a prove-it deal, and now that's proven to be a $1 million deal now. Extended another year to 2028, as I was saying. It's an incentive-based contract, just like his last one is incentive-based. Gets a little bonus for winning a bowl game on that last contract. So it is incentive-based, so it could go over $1 million. Based on what the incentives look like, we're not going to know the specs on the contract for a little bit. As far as buyout, I don't know the buyout yet. The last one was 50% buyout. That's what's kind of been the standard here. So I'm assuming that's what it is again with this one. We'll find out. But as far as the incentive based, what the incentives are, how much he gets paid, We saw Peter Thamel, who broke the news. Shout out to Peter Thamel, broke the news. It was nice to wake up to that early morning breaking news. He said that some of the incentives are for 8+ wins. It's nice to see there's a new bar of expectation for the Bobcats is 8 now. Now that's even written into the contracts. Those are some of the incentive, but based on how much those are, he might be the highest paid coach in the Sun Belt. Tim Beck makes the same base salary of $1 million. He also has incentives, and based on some of the coastal reaction to the contract, some of the reaction on X, Twitter, if you will, some of the coastal fans were saying that those incentives for Beck are pretty high. So they would have to be pretty high for GJ in order for him to have the highest contract in the Sun Belt. But regardless, it's up there. It's towards the top of the Sun Belt, which is, it's nice to just say that. I'm sure it was nice for the administration to be able to provide that contract and kind of hang that label on their coach that they have here. And on the administration, they deserve a ton of credit for their commitment to football, because GJ Kinney, he even said it, that a lot of the reason he wanted to extend this contract, and again, that's an article I put out in the Express News. Go check that out. I put some of these quotes in there. It's an exclusive interview I did with him. Got to talk to him on the phone after the news broke. The commitment to things, the support around football. Obviously, we have the renovations for the weight room, the football facility, a $37 million project that's cooking now. They're really going. The ground's all torn up. Saw Daniel DePrado tweeted out a picture about last practice before they leave for Dallas, and you could see the ground all torn up in that south end zone. They're ready to add to it. There's that aspect of it, but then he added the commitment to NIL, which, we're not going to know the exact specs to that, what the support is, what the investment is, but it must be pretty good. We didn't see a lot of guys entering the transfer portal for this offense. So that tells me that whatever's going on with NIL seems to be pretty solid. And then he mentioned an indoor practice facility. It was the indoor is what he kept calling it. So it seems that is in the works as well. It's that commitment, it seems that's something that he really absolutely wanted when re-signing this contract with Texas State and being willing to stay here for a while. But he also wanted to prove to everybody that he's not just going to come and go with these jobs. He's not going to be his reputation of frequent departure. He wants to kind of push that to the side, where every year of his coaching career, he's changed. He's been at 6 different places in 6 years. This will be the first time he'll have a second year. And I think wanting to prove that aspect of himself, that he's willing to stay and grow in a place if the situation is right. They also increased his coaching pool, which was necessary. The assistant coaches, going to have to hang on to Mac Leftwich, going to have to hang on to Pat. He's going to have to hang on to DePrado. Other coaches as well. Shoemaker's doing a great job with the offensive line. He just won a Coach of the Year award. I should have typed that up and had that ready for exactly what it was, but I did see that he just got an award. They've got terrific recruiters with Will Bryant at tight end, Stutzman at receivers, Greg at corners, McCoyle at safeties. They're all doing a great job of recruiting. I just mentioned McCoyle and Greg. I'm about to talk about the recruiting class. 7 DBs for this recruiting class is big. It needed a lot of help, and that's a big part of it. But they've got some really terrific recruiters on staff, and now they're going to bring in Barrett Neely for running backs coach. They still haven't announced that. Don't know when that's going to happen, when they're going to announce that. Doesn't seem like he's in for the bowl game. Probably just too close to it and everything. They have to figure out all the specs of that contract. But increasing that coaching pool was big for GJ in signing this contract. Coming back next season. It's guaranteed right there. We all pretty much had a good feeling when all these jobs seemed to be filled and things start to settle with the whole coaching search thing. But this is absolute confirmation. A new deal for GJ Kinney. Well earned for GJ. Absolutely incredible job in year one. Just galvanized this place and turned it completely around. And I mean, the credit to Dr. Kelly Damphousse, athletics director Don Coryell. Even when I was talking to GJ, he gave credit to associate AD Travis Comer. Just a lot of people that got things done. A lot of people that were here before under the last regime, Comer and Don Coryell specifically, that have embraced the changes that Kelly Damphousse has brought in. He's mentioned it before when he was hired. He had two goals: was to make Texas State an R1 institution for research purposes and funding purposes there, and to fix football. I would say he's well on his way to accomplishing both. So terrific job, Texas State. I'm excited to see what GJ Kinney can do with a full offseason at a place. I mean, he had a full off. He got here in December. I guess I shouldn't say a full offseason, but I guess an offseason with continuity of where he's at, where it's not about, okay, let me move and adjust and get to know my new surroundings and all of that. He's used to it. All that is done. That happened last year. He's been here for over a year now. That went quick. That was one of the quickest years for a coach. Maybe it coincided with the first year of my child. Those always go quick, as people say, because it did. I blinked and I was like, oh man, he's been here a year. I mean, hope he stays here a lot longer. I have a lot of fun with GJ Kinney around. That is for sure. But let's talk about recruiting day, signing day. I mean, let's talk about recruits on signing day, for signing day. The early signing period started on Wednesday, closes today. I'm not expecting any more for 22. I said it on Twitter leading up to signing day. I was predicting about 20 to 22 signed. They got right at 22. Seemed like if they had fully gotten their way, they would have been done at 24, 25. There's a few that still are getting close in the bag. One of them committed on Instagram, but not on Twitter. I've yet to really tweet about it, but it's waiting to see what was happening in the early signing period. But it's DeSoto defensive lineman Jason Douglas. Really good commitment pickup, but he is apparently waiting for February. Don't know exactly why. Who knows what's going on with that situation. Same with Junior Thornton, La Vega wide receiver, who was previously committed, still committed to Texas State. He was the one commit leading into signing day that didn't sign. He's still expected to sign in February, though. And then Taji Atkins, running back from Westfield. He hasn't committed yet. Didn't sign in the early period. Said he's not signing until February. A lot of confidence around Texas State to secure him. But I know they would have liked to get those three, maybe end up at 25, adding 3 more high school guys from that list. But they were able to get 11 high school players, 4 junior college players, 7 transfer portal players. Nice, even breakup for that class, with half of them being high school players. Kinney said it in the press conference, which you'll hear on that presser pod if you haven't heard the press conference already, how important it was to get some of these developmental bodies in there, some guys that will be there for all 4 years. And, with the transfer portal, who knows how that all shakes out. But you could end up with a Jordan Revels type player, where they are here for the majority of their career, all of their career. Revels is. Shout out to Jordan Revels. I did confirm he is playing in the bowl game. He's the one senior I've confirmed with. I've heard there are some other seniors that might not play in that bowl game. They've opted out. We'll see where that is. I haven't figured out exactly where that is. But it won't be Jordan Revels. He is one of them. But let's talk about those 11 high school players that Texas State signed, starting with Reagan quarterback Brad Jackson. You've heard him on this pod before if you've been listening for a while. I think it was June. I had him on and interviewed him. Go back and listen to that one. He was the first commitment of this class. He was the first signing announced. He's in the bag. Terrific season at Reagan after transferring in from Cypress Creek. That's where he spent his first 3 years. Then he goes to Reagan and has a terrific season. He's an early enrollee, one of 2 early enrollees of these high school signees. The other one is Frisco Emerson wide receiver Kylan Evans. Both of them are early enrollees, getting some good chemistry. They're already working out with the team right now as we speak. So they're already here. Another receiver, Kimball receiver Jordan Martin. You have Conroe safety Tice Williams. He was a Boise State commit that they got to switch. Broken Arrow tight end Derek Osmond. He was a Tulsa commit that they got to flip. Waxahachie edge Jeremy Jackson. Kennedale linebacker Frederick Doty, who was a UNT commit that they got to flip. Westbury defensive back Chris Jones, listed as a receiver. He will be playing corner. Chris Jones. Fort Bend Marshall safety William Mitchell. Brock offensive lineman Brock Riker, who's actually his district MVP as offensive lineman, defensive lineman. So Brock Riker, keep your eye on him. Hearing he might be a center for the Bobcats. And W.T. White offensive lineman Tyler Norris. Norris was a late signing. So when they had the press conference on Wednesday, it was 21. And Norris, he'd been committed for a while, didn't sign right away, wasn't sure what was happening. 9:30, his NLI, not NIL, for clarity. NLI is a national letter of intent. NIL is name, image, and likeness. We're talking NLI for National Signing Day. But his NLI didn't come until 9:30, so they announced it really late that night. Come to find out, UNT, who had a really good recruiting class, was fighting tooth and nail for Tyler Norris. They were able to beat UNT for Doty and Norris and a couple other guys. Went back and forth. UNT got some Texas State guys. But yeah, UNT had a really good recruiting class, but not Tyler Norris. They were able to secure Norris, get him in there. 2 offensive linemen for that high school class. Yeah, it's 1 quarterback, 2 receivers, 3 defensive backs, 1 tight end, 1 defensive lineman, 1 linebacker, and 2 offensive linemen for the high school ranks. Let's talk about the 4 junior college players, because one of them was a surprise. I guess there was also a high school surprise with William Mitchell, the Fort Bend Marshall safety. He was a surprise, not previously committed before signing day. But so was Butler Community College offensive tackle Isaiah Walker. Big boy. He was a Colorado commit. They were able to flip him at the last minute. It's a big addition. They really needed an offensive lineman replacement. You got Bray Walker leaving. You got Caleb Johnson leaving. It's a lot of returners on the offensive line, but you want to fill in that depth for sure. And Isaiah Walker is a potential starter. He's the number 2 JUCO in the country. Number 2 JUCO offensive tackle in the country. So terrific get, nice get. They also got Coffeyville corner Cameron Pearson, Hutchinson safety Ryan Nolan, who actually led all of JUCO in interceptions. Ryan Nolan. And Navarro linebacker Jordan Smith. Jordan Smith, I wouldn't call him a full surprise because he committed the morning on Wednesday morning. So right before all the announcements, all the signing day festivities, Jordan Smith was already in the bag. So he's almost a surprise. He would have been the 5th surprise for that one. We'll hop over to the transfer portal players. But yeah, I guess the 4 JUCOs, 2 defensive backs, 1 linebacker, 1 offensive lineman. Gardner Webb was a surprise transfer portal. I'm sorry, Gardner Webb defensive end Bryce Bass. He was one of the first surprise transfers of the day. They got him in the bag pretty early. Apparently, he told Drew Sawyer, who works for the team in the recruiting area, if he committed, she had to jump in the river, and she honored it. Good for her. Even put it on Twitter and everything. Utah Tech receiver Bo Sparks. We knew about him before. Washington State running back Jalen Jenkins, who actually has a previous relationship with tight end coach Will Bryant. Coached him at Allen. Bryant was 1 year at Allen. He was the running back coach. Sparks, I guess I glossed over Bo Sparks too. The receiver Bo Sparks, another receiver from Utah Tech, another freshman All-American from Utah Tech. I guess Craig Stutzman, the receiver coach, his brother is still on staff over there at Utah Tech. So there's a relationship there. We saw Joey Hobart, what Hobart did. Very similar stats to what Sparks did. Hobart had better stats at Utah Tech, but I mean, still, they're pretty similar. I think Hobart had around 90 catches at Tech. Sparks had 72. A freshman with 3 years left. Good to bring him in. But Washington State running back Jalen Jenkins, who I mentioned as well, went to Allen. He is similar to Mahdi in that he can be a pass catcher and a runner. Seems like he can do both out of the backfield. They like that type of running back, so bringing in Jalen Jenkins, that makes sense. They also got UTEP linebacker James Neal, one of 2 players from UTEP they got. They also got UTEP corner Latrez Moore, but he goes by Trez Moore. They also got Boston College receiver Jaden Williams. A lot of people were excited about him. And Cincinnati corner Justin Harris. Seems like Williams and Harris are going to be one and dones. Same with Neal, but 2 receivers, 2 DBs, 1 defensive lineman, 1 running back, and 1 linebacker for the transfers. So there you go. There's your 22. Pretty good class. Pretty good class where addressed a lot of needs. You'd like to see more linemen. I broke down the linemen, though. I broke down every position with returners and guys that are included on this list that they just signed and where they fit. And it's pretty hard to find the holes right now. I mean, I'd like to see what it looks like in spring and who's going to play where and everything, but they did a really good job with this class of addressing needs. And it may not look it on the surface when you look at this class, especially the lineman side of it, because what did they get? 2 defensive linemen, 3 offensive linemen. It's 5 total linemen on both sides. But looking at the returners, it doesn't seem as bad when you look at it. Especially, maybe I'm just not used to so many guys not entering the transfer portal. It speaks a lot to the culture, a winning culture, the culture these coaches have built and provided, that guys don't want to leave, they want to stay. But let's talk about returners and these new guys. We'll break it down position by position. Start on offense, start at QB. TJ Finley, assuming he's coming back. Malik Hornsby, assuming he's coming back. PJ Hatter. Those are the 3 that are coming back. Then you add Brad Jackson in there. So there's your 4 quarterbacks there. Don't see any holes. Don't see a need, especially if, Finley is for certain coming back, then that's your guy. Running back, we have Mahdi, Davenport, Lincoln Perry. Don't forget about Lincoln Perry. That's going to be an interesting 3-headed monster there. It might even work out Mahdi, Perry, Davenport. But either way, I think all 3 are going to be utilized. Davenport really proved a lot to me. Mahdi, of course, proved himself. I mean, I don't even have to talk much about that. But Davenport really came along late. And Perry leading the team in rushing in 2022. That's a good set of 3 guys. And add Jenkins to that. Jalen Jenkins, Washington State transfer. We'll see how he cracks that rotation and where he ends up. Could even see him maybe being a returner with Mahdi, but we'll see. I'm pretty happy with the running back situation. And now, granted, they do want 5 to 7. We've heard them say that. So that's where I think the February signing period, if they could still get Taji Atkins, get a true freshman running back in there, somebody who you will have for 4 years, you can develop. You don't necessarily need them to go out there and do something right away. I think that would be pretty important for that running back room. Receiver returners, we've got Joey Hobart, Ashton Hawkins, Cole Wilson, Chris Don, Drew Donley, Shadid Ahmed, Langston Anderson, the Oklahoma State transfer we didn't see a ton from. Pretty good set of receivers there. Obviously, there are more in these lists, but I'm listed out guys who were starters or heavily in the rotation or expected to be in the rotation. Like I listed Shadid Ahmed, Marshall transfer. He was injured all season though, but very much involved and around in the plans. They even gave him number 1, so I think they think highly of him. But add Sparks, Jaden Williams, Kylan Evans, and Jordan Martin to that group. And what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 11 guys that I think can go, I think can play. It's a pretty good setup for that wide receiver. They play 4 at a time, so you'd like to see them have about 12, a little more than 12, but 12 guys that they're rotating in and out there, and that's pretty close to it. Tight end, got Connor Fox coming back. You got Titus Lyons coming back. Jake Simpson, who was a freshman, didn't play a lot. Imagine he was a red shirt. Then you add Derek Osmond to that. So that's 4 pretty good guys right there. Moving to offensive tackle, Nash Jones. I think sometimes he's a forgotten guy. Maybe it's just me forgotten. When I was there on Wednesday after the press conference, I've been writing for the San Antonio Express News, as I was saying. I had a deadline. Press conference was at 2, articles due at 3. So I had to stop and type it immediately after. And I'm sitting there in the lobby typing. And it was kind of a nice way to spy on everybody. People are walking by me, and I'm like, oh, there's Nash Jones, walking without a limp, walking without a boot. That's right. He played the last 2 games. That's right. He's going to be a full month healthy for this game. And he's also going to be healthy for next season. So Nash Jones at offensive tackle, roundabout way for me to go back to the offensive tackles, but Nash Jones coming back. Trenton Scott, who we saw play a lot because Nash Jones was hurt, really came to his own. They even felt comfortable flipping sides, right or left, at that tackle for him. Alex Harkey, he was the Colorado transfer. Didn't see a ton of him, though. Could see him coming up. Justin DeLeon. Justin DeLeon was true freshman last year, didn't play, but he's still the highest rated recruit the Bobcats have ever had on 247 Sports. Bami Badusi, another true freshman. He got a lot of praise from the coaches. They were even having him break out during the warm-ups at some of the practices. Ian Hoover, his Campbell transfer. I haven't seen a ton of him, but he's a big guy, Ian Hoover. But then to that, all those tackles I just listed, you had Isaiah Walker, who I think Walker, it might be a starter. You might be looking at Jones and Walker as your starters. Scott really proved a lot too, so it's going to be hard to beat him out. But that's a pretty good group of tackles right there. I'm pretty confident in those. And then you move to guard. You have Dorian Strawn, who looked great. They moved him all across the board as well with injuries. They're going to put him at tackle sometimes. Really was strong at guard. You have Chase Todd, who can play center, can play guard. They'll be able to move him around. You have the Abibo brothers. They play guard. Marcus Alexander, the Oklahoma transfer, he's somebody I'm really high on. He's been on the pod before. You'll see him get in the mix, and then you add Norris to that mix. I don't know exactly where Norris looks like he's going to be a guard. They could play Norris at guard, tackle, but you add him to that guard mix. Center, it's a little thinner. I just have two guys just because I don't know who's going to be snapping. I'm sure one of the guards I just listed, the Abibos, Todd, Alexander, Norris, they might switch over to center and start snapping. For right now, it's Valenzuela, Danny Valenzuela. You remember him, Arizona State transfer. And then Riker here, and Brock Riker, the true freshman, will play a little center. So they'll want to do something there with just those two. I kind of have a feeling Chase Todd will switch over and start snapping the ball a little bit. Really like Chase Todd. I think they need to get him in the mix a little bit more. But even just listen out those offensive linemen. I see they signed 3, and you put them in there with everybody else. You're like, okay, they actually have a pretty good core group of offensive linemen. Defensive line, that's the one where I saw they only signed 2, and Bryce Bass is a pretty big player. They could put him on the interior, but Jeremy Jackson is an edge guy. They're both kind of edge guys, outside defensive ends. So there wasn't a lot of beef, if you will, a lot of interior big guys. But then when I started mapping it out and putting in the returners and looking at it, it's like, well, they have a lot of big guys coming back. A lot of these interior defensive linemen are coming back. We'll start with the edge guys though, defensive end, and now let's remember the 4-2-5 that they run. So that's kind of how I have it written out. I didn't for the 5. I just have corners and safeties. I didn't really designate a nickel or a star is what they like to call it. But let's start with the defensive ends. Ben Bell coming back, graded out really high by PFF, led the team in sacks, cut off all his long hair. If you remember that, it was locked in for him. Maybe I should have done it. You got to shave the head, get like Ben Bell. Shout out to Ben Bell. He'll be back. Devin Wright off the bench. He got some sacks, got in there. Khalil Alexander, same situation, was coming off the bench, but especially towards the end of the season, I think he even had 2 in that last game for that 7th win. Bryce Cage, I saw a lot of great stuff from Bryce Cage, not a starter, but hustling all over the place. Devin Martinez, been here for a while, didn't play a whole lot, more of a special teams guy, but still in the mix. Jalazen Landry, they call him JoJo. I've heard from Kenny and others that he may even play this bowl game. They really like him. They think they held him out more so he could get that red shirt as a true freshman. But they like what he offers as well. Big number 6 on the defensive end out there. And then right there, you add Jeremy Jackson, Bryce Bass to that mix, and that's a good group. That's a good group for that defensive end. Obviously, you're going to miss Jordan Revels. You're going to miss Chance Mann. You're going to miss Sam Latham. There's some big names leaving from that defensive end spot. But I think they're able to replace with some good guys. Switch to that interior defensive line, defensive tackle. Got Tavian Coleman coming back, which might be their best interior defensive lineman. Terry Webb's coming back. Myron Warren's coming back. Dominic Ratcliffe, who I thought did terrific. He switched from defensive end to the inside, put on some weight. They put him on the interior, had a great season. Very comfortable with all four of those guys I just listed: Coleman, Webb, Warren, Ratcliffe. I'm more than comfortable with those guys. And honestly, even the next two, Cameron Washington, Christian Rory. So right there, that's 6 defensive tackles that are returning. I don't even have any new guys peppered in here because I think the 2 defensive linemen, they look like they are going to be edge guys, end guys. Although, as I was saying, Bryce Bass could potentially move to the inside. But they have a lot of returning interior defensive linemen. Basically, the whole rotation that they use, their regular rotation, is coming back. So shout out to Mike O'Gunn. You're getting some guys back. And when I listed out a bunch of coaches who are really good at recruiting, doing some cool stuff, and I didn't mention Mike O'Gunn. Shout out to Mike O'Gunn, been doing some great stuff. I've heard a rumor, unconfirmed rumor, that he may have started #TakeBackTexas. So, I don't want to, don't put it on the record. Well, maybe I just did. I said it on a pod, didn't I? But shout out to Mike O'Gunn and the defensive line. I think they've got some dudes coming back for sure. And we saw them lead the nation in TFLs. Don't worry about JMU. Don't worry about them. They're fine. They've got so much good things going on. The Dukes. Let us have the national TFL mark, okay? They've got a ranked basketball team, terrific football team. Not even supposed to be eligible for a bowl, and they still get a bowl. Unbelievable. Texas State had to wait 10 years. They had years where they were outside of the 2-year transition period, became bowl eligible, and didn't get it. JMU just waltzes in and takes it. Sick of the Dukes already. They just got to the Sun Belt, and I'm tired of them. All right, let's move on. Where are we at? Linebackers. This is one where they signed 3 linebackers for 2 spots. So that tells you that they did have a need there. I mean, when Brian Holloway is gone, that guy, it felt like he never came off the field. They needed him a lot. And I think that it's twofold, where it speaks a lot to Holloway's abilities. I think he may even be a pro prospect, an NFL guy or XFL or one of the CFL. I think he's someone who can play at the next level, of course. But I think it was also that there wasn't very many guys behind him. Now, obviously, they're playing Dan Foster a ton right next to him, and when he was injured, it'd be Kenny Haynes, but there wasn't a lot of depth at that linebacker spot. So I think that's why they went out and they got 3 linebackers for those 2 spots. You got Dan Foster coming back, who I mentioned was the Marshall transfer's first year here. Pretty good season for him. Kenny Haynes, who'd come in a lot and spell both those guys. Dontavius Burrows, didn't see a ton from him, more special teams. Same with Derek Mourning, 2 guys that were brought in this year from this staff that were in the rotation on special teams but not playing a ton. You still have the Emmanuel brothers as well, Josh and John. I can remember Josh had a really good true freshman season. I think that was 2021. He had that good true freshman season, but they've both kind of fallen out of the rotation this season and the season before. But they brought in Neal from UTEP, Jordan Smith from Navarro, and Doty from Kennedale. So they went and got one from each level. They got a transfer portal guy, a JUCO guy, and a high school guy. I think they needed to fill some needs there. Even though it's just 3 guys, I felt like that was as important to them as the DBs, as getting 7 DBs as they did, because they need the defensive guys. And they went out 12 of these 22 signings are on the defensive side. Let's go to the defensive backs. As I mentioned, 7 new guys for the defensive backs. I've got some really good guys leaving, like Caleb Ford Dement is out. Sean Holton at safety is out. So they're missing some key guys. They are getting a couple key guys back that I'm surprised are back, and we'll talk about that. But let's talk about corners. Josh Eaton will be back. Oklahoma transfer, was one of the team leaders on this team, very vocal player. There were hints that he might play offense and defense, but he only played defense this year. I was disappointed by that. Maybe in the bowl game they'll sneak out an offensive play for Josh Eaton. But he'll be back. He's a starter, and he'll be back. Chris Mills, part-time starter, usually would just spell Eaton or Caleb Ford Dement, but he'll be back, which is interesting because he's a senior. I don't know exactly how that works, but he's back. And AJ Edwards, he sometimes will play at star position, but I put him here at corner. He'll be back. Jalen Shelton, who was a West Virginia transfer, first year here with the Bobcats, didn't play a ton this year, but he's a pretty good player, so he could get in there. Amarian Atwood, I've heard some things about, same with how we heard about Jolaise and Landry, heard that about Atwood, where they've developed enough through their true freshman season that, hey, they may even play in the bowl game coming up, so watch out for Atwood. Charles Brown is still there. He was a receiver, really good receiver. Takes the top off the offense or the defenses a lot, but they switched him to defense and he hadn't played a ton. So really outside of Eaton and Mills, not a lot of guys that have played a ton, and I'm pretty sure Edwards is going to play at that star position. So adding Justin Harris, Trez Moore, Cameron Pearson, and Chris Jones, 4 corners to this class is very helpful. I mean, you have Justin Harris and Trez Moore who can play seemingly right away, possibly even Cameron Pearson coming over from JUCO. And then you have your developmental guy with Chris Jones. Jones is a receiver at Westbury, switching the corner, so he's going to take some time. But both Harris and Moore were starters at their previous schools. So, I mean, Justin Harris, a starter at Cincy, and Moore, a starter at UTEP. I think they're going to come in and compete for that other spot across from Eaton. I'm pretty confident Eaton will be the starter. And TBD on Chris Mills. It seems like he's coming back, but I just don't understand how. But, there's a lot to understand in college football these days. As with the transfer portal and everything, it's ever changing all the time. I mean, I turned on Texas State basketball the other day, and Colton Benson's out there hitting threes. I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't this guy supposed to be out? The NCAA changed the multi-transfer rule on us, and that went into effect right away, and it affected basketball, made him eligible. So there he goes. It's good. This team really needs that. Severely under reporting on basketball and other sports. We'll get to that after bowl season. Like I said, it's a lot going on with this. Good busy, At safety, we got Caleb Culp. He'll be back. Really good player. They need him back for sure. Torrey Spears is supposed to be back as well. He was injured really early in the season, out for the whole year. I'm assuming some sort of medical red shirt. So he'll be back. But Spears and Mills, I'm very surprised are back. They've both played well over 4 years, well over 5 years, I think, for Spears. But you also have Caleb Coleman coming back, although he could be at that star position, that nickel position. He was another West Virginia transfer. Shelton and Coleman were the 2 West Virginia guys last season. Bobby Crosby at safety got in there quite a bit. Darius Jackson, we didn't see at all. He was a Missouri transfer, injured the entire year, got hurt last spring, didn't play the whole year. But they'll have him back. So they'll need some help at safety. And they've got Ryan Nolan, who I mentioned led JUCO, all of JUCO in interceptions with 7. William Mitchell out of Fort Bend Marshall, and Tice Williams. They were able to flip him from Boise State. So some good safeties to add to the group. But if you're, it's a lot of names I just threw at you, but if you noticed, there's not a lot lacking. Like I didn't get to a position and it's like, wow, that seems really thin right there. Maybe center with the 2 guys I listed, but as I was saying, there's a plethora of guards that I listed out, and I'm sure 1 or 2 of those knows how to snap the ball, so they'll be putting them in there as well. But all in all, a well-rounded class. Haven't seen a ton of guys hit the transfer portal. I mentioned all the DBs. We saw Javin Ware hit the transfer portal, and we saw Ronnie Hamrick hit the transfer portal. We saw Javin Ware to get a UTEP offer, which is nice. Good to see these guys bounce back and move on. But that's why it went from 5 to 7 DBs after those 2 guys hit the portal. And neither one played a whole lot last year. We haven't seen anybody hit the portal that played a lot. Calvin Hill, he played a lot, but not this season. He's led the team in rushing before, but it wasn't this year. So it's been nice to see that. Nice to see some continuity between seasons with the coaching staff, with the players. It's been great. I like covering this aspect of it instead of the good. I want to cover the good changes, not the bad changes. I'll talk about it no matter what, though. No matter what happens. I'm going to do a quick Rice preview because it is, as I said, it's December 22nd. I am celebrating Christmas early. Tomorrow is my Christmas Eve. Sunday is my Christmas Day, at least as far as me and my family are concerned. And then Monday, Christmas Day, I'll be driving to Dallas to get up there and get things going. When I get there, I want to do an episode. I want to have a good preview episode for you. So I won't spoil too much of that. We'll see how that all works out. Me getting up there. I'd like to do an episode in my hotel room on Christmas Day, and maybe even have a little extra content for you on Christmas for when you're driving to Dallas. We'll keep that one a surprise. But let's do a quick Rice. Few notes on Rice I want to talk about. I read through a whole bunch of stats, read the game notes, and the one that stood out to me was how the Owls are on fourth down. It's a small note. It's not one that really stands out, but it stands out to me, and I'll explain why. But they're 13th offensively on fourth down, 15th in fourth down defense. So they're pretty good on offense and defense. They're good at converting fourth downs and preventing teams from converting on fourth down. And that's something that we've seen this offense. They like to go for it on fourth down a lot. And we've seen this defense struggle to stop offenses that do go for it on fourth down. So if it is a close game, I feel like that's going to matter. That's going to come up for me. That stood out to me, just the Owls on fourth down. For some reason, it popped out on me. 3 offensive players I want to talk about really quick, and then we'll move on. And then I'll save the rest of my preview. But I just want to talk about these 3 players. We'll start with the running back for the Owls. There are 3 running backs in the whole country that have 2 50-plus yard runs and 1 80-plus yard reception. The first one is Trey Benson from Florida State. The second one is Ishmael Mahdi from Texas State. All right, Mahdi. And the third one is Dean Connors from Rice. I thought that was interesting. When you look at that list of 3 players, 2 of them are going to be playing each other on Tuesday. But Dean Connors, he leads the team with 707 yards rushing, not a 1,000-yard rusher, but he also wasn't a starter for the first half of the season. 527 of his 707 yards were in the last 6 games of the season. So watch out for Dean Connors, real deal player. Good player for the Owls. I think the Bobcats still have the superior running back in Mahdi, but the Owls aren't right behind with Dean Connors. Not one of their big names of this team. Came on kind of late. I mean, shoot, man, even looking at Rice, them having to win their last 2 games to even get bowl eligible, they're coming in pretty hot. Their quarterback went down, JT Daniels. He had to medically retire because of concussions. And so they had a freshman come in for the last 5 games. And, growing pains at the beginning, started to figure it out. Just had a month to prepare for this one. So we got to watch out. We'll get to that quarterback here in a sec. But for now, let's talk about Luke McCaffrey, who at one point was the quarterback for Rice. In fact, he was the quarterback for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. He was there for 2 seasons before transferring to Rice, played quarterback his first year before switching to receiver the last 2 seasons. And in those 2 seasons, he's caught 126 passes for 1,700 yards and 18 touchdowns. 12 of those 18 touchdowns were this year. Really good receiver. You may recognize that name. McCaffrey, yes, that is his brother, Christian McCaffrey's brother, Ed McCaffrey's son. He's got 2 other brothers who played some pretty good football as well. And he's a legacy player, obviously. So keep an eye on him for sure. 8th all-time in receptions at Rice, and he's a junior, could play another year, but that's pretty interesting too. Rice has played a lot of football, and in 2 years, McCaffrey worked his way up on that list. So the skill players for the Rice Owls, Dean Connors, Luke McCaffrey, keep eyes on them. And then A.J. Padgett, he's going to be the quarterback, that freshman quarterback I mentioned with J.T. Daniels medically retiring. A.J. Padgett is in there. He's a redshirt freshman. He's originally from Frisco, Texas. Played the last 5 games as the QB. 636 yards. I meant to write down his completion percentage, but 636 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions for Padgett. 2 big wins, as I was saying, to end the regular season to get them to bowl eligibility. So he's no slouch, no slouch. No, all 3 of those guys, they aren't slouches. It's still the same lines as it was the last pod I did. 4.5 points for the Bobcats. They're favored 60.5 overall. So it's none of the lines have changed or anything like that. But this is still a team that should very much be respected. Rice. even though they are 6-6, even though they did get lucky with their bowl game last year, only 5 wins. Their APR got them into the bowl. They're so smart they got in there. I love it, man. It's like nerds versus party animals for this game. This is 2 completely different fan bases, but 2 fan bases that I think get along. You know, no bad blood here. No one's mad about anything. I think we're all just happy to be here. But that's it. We'll leave it at that. We'll wrap it up at that. In summation, GJ Kinney got paid. Bobcat signed 22. And Rice Owls coming up on Tuesday. As I was saying, we're going to have some good content. I'm going to have a presser pod out for you for sure, no matter what. Got another good surprise for you that we'll put out. We'll see when that gets put out. And when I get to Dallas, I want to do another preview episode for you as well. And of course, there's going to be a post bowl game pod. We'll see how quick it is. If they win, we'll do it pretty quick. May not want to talk about it I'll need that 24-hour rule that GJ Kinney likes to put out there for his guys. Oh, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/windnoworgetbent. Check out our merch site, WNOGB.com. I got the Sicko sweater here. Still my favorite piece of merch we've got. I've also got mugs. We've got hats, lots of good stuff out there. Subscribe, like, comment on our YouTube channel, Win Now or Get Bent. Follow us on Twitter, @WinNowOrGetBent, @WNOGB on Instagram. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff on all our platforms, the audio platforms, Apple, Spotify, however you're listening to us. I know I'm an audio head, so I listen to the audio version of it every time, but get on there and leave some comments and help us grow. Thank you to TGC. Thank you to Family First Cremations. Thank you to Chilsey. Thank you to Zach Webb, the wizard, for producing this episode and every episode of Win Now or Get Bent. And of course, thank you, sickos. Thank you. Hey, we're on the verge. We're on the horizon of a bowl game. Are you ready? I'm going to be there in Dallas. Y'all reach out to me. I want to see you. I want to see you sickos out there. Thank you. Thank you for this season. Thank you for your continued support, tuning in, helping us grow. Be shouting out into the void, into nothingness if it weren't for you consuming this content. I am forever humbled and grateful for all of you. But all right, Bobcats, let's do it. Only takes 15 minutes to cook rice, huh? We'll find out Tuesday. Win now or get bent.